We have a brief set of remarks coming from the HAC board member, Bennie Thompson. Congressman Thompson's always gracious. He comes to our conferences. He always says, what do you want me to do? How can I help? And so this evening, we asked him if he would make a few remarks to all of you, welcome you, and sort of get us ready for the conference tomorrow. So what I'd like to do, and I appreciate your attention, what I'd like to do is introduce a member of my board of directors, Peggy Wright, and then I will ask Peggy to introduce Congressman Thompson. Peggy is a former president of the Housing Assistance Council Board of Directors. She's the director of the Delta Study Center at Arkansas State University. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Geography and a Master's of Public Administration from Arkansas State University, and also a Master's of Administration in Community Economic Development from Southern New Hampshire University, and is working on her doctorate also from Southern New Hampshire University. Ms. Wright knows rural areas well, coming from Arkansas, and also was a previous self-help housing director. She developed, I believe, 68 units of self-help housing. So would you please welcome member of the Board of Directors of the Housing Assistance Council, Peggy Wright.
Thank you, Moises. Good evening. When Moises asked me about making this introduction, I was very happy because, you know, when you have friends and people that you admire, you don't have a problem introducing them. The Honorable Bennie Thompson is the former mayor of the town of Bolton, Mississippi. Anybody know where Bolton is? Okay, few people. Kind of like Forest City, where I come from. Supervisor for District 2 in Hinds County, Bolton, Mississippi. He's currently the U.S. representative of the second Congressional District of the great state of Mississippi. He currently serves on the House Committee on the Budget and the House Committee on Agriculture. He is a lifelong activist in the civil rights struggle. He has been a participant in the complete spectrum of the fight for equality and in making the political system work for every citizen. As a grassroots volunteer, labor organizer, student activist, community leader, and politician, Congressman Thomas remained focused in combating and working to address issues of race, gender, and class in both the private and public sectors. He has received numerous honors from the National Conference of Black Mayors, USDA Rural Development Fellows, the Mississippi chapter of the NAACP, and the Ford Foundation. He has served directorships on the American Civil Liberties, Housing Assistance Council, Southern Regional Council, and the National Rainbow Coalition. No one can, I guess, stand as tall as Bennie. When I first met him, when I came on the board, I met he and the Reverend Bowie. Everybody remembers Harry. Two great men who have helped me through the years as I did self-help housing and became a member of the Housing Assistance Council board. Tomorrow, I want to say that as we look at housing and we look at young people, Bennie is an example of someone who can tell young people what you can do and what you should do. Tomorrow he will do the opening at 8:30, and I hope everybody will be awake. Looking at rural America's emerging housing leaders, looking at perspectives, outlooks, and observations. And no one can talk about the struggle and accomplishments and inspiration to young people, but also us old folk. Not talking about you, David, talking about me. So at this time, I want to introduce my friend, my mentor, and someone who I truly admire, Honorable Bennie Thompson.
Thank you, Peggy. Good evening. Good evening. I'm from Mississippi, and I'm used to audiences talking back. You know, there's no penalty to talk back to me. To those of you who've come to this event, I'd like to welcome you. I'm a board member of HAC. Morsace and a lot of other people affiliated with HAC do a wonderful job. The good thing about it is they bring good people like you together every so often to talk about what it is we need to do to get things done. Now, the challenge for all of us is we need new blood. Some of us are gray-haired, others of us are no-haired. And so a lot of you who are out here this evening, we're going to have you to step up at some point and replace a lot of the old-timers who've been around because you can only fight this battle so long. And so a lot of you are here to get the necessary tools to help us continue to fight this battle. The other thing is I want to give you absolute comfort that even though I serve in the United States House of Representatives, I live and have spent my entire life in a town whose population is 500. So when I talk about going to town, I'm talking about the next town over, not the one I live in. But I'll step back and frame it for you because HAC is so special to a person like me. I was a small town mayor. I was elected making a lot of promises to those 500 people that if you elect me, I'm going to bring running water, sewage, housing, and then jobs to this community. And that community invested in me, and then all of a sudden, it hit me. Bennie, you now have to deliver. And so it was only with the help of HAC. We had a small town housing assistance project funded, and HAC sent these funny talking people to Mississippi trying to help me bring running water and sewage and housing to a community. Now I want you to go back this is in the 70s. And so all of a sudden, we had to put an organization together. We had to establish a board of directors. We had to have bylaws. And lo and behold, somebody said we have to have a financial management system to even apply. Now, I want you to understand, this is Bolton, Mississippi. And so after we put all that together, the HAC had the audacity to say, now you're going to have to go and borrow $1.5 million. Now, Bolton, Mississippi wasn't worth $1.5 million at that time. And here we are about to start borrowing money. And mind you, our board of directors, a little leery, because those zeros didn't add up. But with HAC holding our hand, I'm happy to say that those 40 units that we borrowed that $1.5 million on, still in operation. All 40 units are occupied. That nonprofit still in existence. But that nonprofit spun off other things in the community. Now you say, well, what else can you spin off? Well, they convinced us that we ought to have a meeting room in the complex. We said, why do we need a meeting room? We said, well, that's planning for the future. So all of a sudden, we had a place in our community where seniors could come and meet. But more importantly, we had a telephone number that we could give people that somebody would actually answer. And we thought we had really hit the big time when something called a fax machine was created. And so we've come a long way with HAC's help. Now, the question for a lot of you here, the particulars might be a little different, but you're struggling in many of your communities to try to put the pieces together, and that's why HAC is so important, because this is what they do so well. They will tell you in a minute, we're not interested in managing any apartments. We don't want to own any, but we just want to create the capacity in the community to determine and manage your own destiny. And I think HAC's strong suit is historically that's what they've done. And that's why a lot of us continue to encourage them to do just what they do. So I'm excited about it. I could tell you that we still have a lot of work to do, but you know that. That's why you're here today. I have to also tell you that starting in January, we're going to have a hell of a time in this town trying to really get people to understand the value of affordable housing in this country. We're going to have to convince people, even though they say they are Christians, that there's still people around here who deserve a safe, sanitary, decent place they call home over their head. So clearly for you who are here, we're going to need your help, because you will have to help us make the case that we have not completed providing housing to people who need it in this great country of ours. And so to Morsace and the staff, we're going to have to continue. I'm not certain about all the resources, but we have a term in the South, South Carolina and Arkansas and Louisiana, we call it make do. Now, whatever we have from a resource standpoint, we're just going to have to make do until we can do better. But we had a lot of experience making do. That means that we provided, as an organization, thousands of units around this country in areas where other people had given up on. But HAC was always there. So I want to compliment HAC for doing that. But I want to compliment you for coming here to this conference, for your interest in making a difference in the communities that you represent. The challenge after you leave is how are you going to be able to put all the pieces together. HAC will hold your hand, but at the end of the day, the ultimate responsibility will rest with you and your organization and how you make it happen. It's a struggle. It's not easy. I'm reminded of a lot of things that go on in the community. But if you've ever seen the face of a family that moves into its first new home, you'll know absolutely that it's the Lord's work when you do that. And people will tell you, say, you know, I never dreamed that I would have something of my own like this to live in. And so that means we have to continue to work harder. So HAC, I want to challenge you to continue to do it. I'm still on the Ag Committee. We make the case. But as I said, January, there'll be new leadership on the Senate side especially. The House, we've had whatever we've had for a little while, but we struggle to keep it at least between the ditches. And so I will kind of close on a note of saying that I'm still optimistic. This is still the greatest country that I'm aware of. But we have to work hard every day to make it stay that way, because there are powers to be who want to change the course and direction of what this country has meant to so many. I'm a ranking member on the Homeland Security Committee, and we had a hearing today on the President's executive order dealing with immigration. Some of the comments I heard from my colleagues who were saying that our president exceeded his authority troubled me. The very personal attacks that they not only made against him, but also against the people who have been in this country, who work hard every day at jobs most people don't want to do. And so now if we can create a system where we recognize those individuals, if it were left up to me, I'd say we need to have a clear pathway to citizenship. But at least we are recognizing that rather than trying to send people back, quote, where they came from, we're going to recognize their worth and dignity to this country. Most of the people that I'm associated with work hard every day. In my district, on Friday evening, they're buying money orders, sending the money back home. Now that doesn't look like somebody's over here freeloading. It looks like somebody's seeking economic opportunity. And so I want to make sure that that story gets told, as well as the story of good people like you who are trying to put people in homes. So I want you to get your rest tonight. I want you to come ready for battle in the morning, to learn everything you possibly can that you can take back home and continue to make a difference in the lives of the people that you represent. Because without your ideas and without HAC support, so many of those people would be homeless and without any hope. So again, I appreciate the opportunity. HAC had a lot to do with me being a member of Congress. I appreciate them. I've been here over 20 years now, and I'm kind of one of those workhorses. You know what the difference between a workhorse and a show horse? You know? Show horses, you see them on TV all the time. Workhorses get it done. And so I'm one of those folk who just love getting it done, making sure that this administration hires good people in your communities. So when you go into the office talking about housing, they ask you, how can I be helpful, and all that. That's important. Last story. When I applied for that $1.5 million, the state director of Farmers Home at that time refused to take my application. Now, I want you to understand, this is a government program in the Federal Register, everything. And the man said, I'm just not going to take your application. God doesn't like ugly, okay? So we had something right after that called an election. And lo and behold, the right president got elected. You don't hear me. And so what happened after that, that president reached over to HAC and picked the executive director of HAC to run Farmers Home. You understand? Which was the housing component for this country. But it gets better. Then that director reached down in the Mississippi, and that little fella who wouldn't take that HAC developed application for only 40 units of housing. They brought him to Washington, put him in a nice corner, and said, we need to provide some additional training for you. And in return, sent somebody else to my state with the sole purpose of taking in 2 applications. One was from a little town called Jonestown, Mississippi, and Bolton, Mississippi. And so that person took their applications, and the rest is history. But you know, so I'm saying that the HAC record is complete with a lot of stories like that that have made a difference in communities. And I'm saying that empowering your community and educating them on the power to vote and exercise that vote intelligently is absolutely important, so that when they do, they go cast that vote for those persons who understand what affordable housing means to a community. And so I'm excited about it. There are a couple other stories I could tell you, but you all are going to have to read my book for that one. But apart from that, I'm really happy. I'm glad to see Jennifer and everybody else here tonight. Actually, and I'll confess, up until about 10 months ago, my administrative assistant in Congress, I stole from HAC. And Marcia McCraven, who's now retired, but at the time, she did so much to help me work through all our challenges with our community. I decided to make her an offer she couldn't refuse. And so she came and worked for the House of Representatives, did a wonderful job, provided immeasurable experience for the housing community. So that's about it. I can't brag on Marcus enough. Great American. If he had the ability, he could do a lot more. But somehow he's been able, in spite of all the challenges that we've had as an organization, he's continued to get it done. So Marcus, let me thank you very much for that. Again, have a wonderful session. I'll try to get back in the morning, but if not, you will understand that there's a little something called the United States House of Representatives that might be calling. But again, have a wonderful and successful conference. Thank you.